Good evening and welcome to the Pompey Politics Podcast.
I'm Ian Tiny Morris.
And I'm Simon Sansbury.
Good evening, Simon. Another very somber week in politics generally, and our focus and our thoughts still remain with the good people of Ukraine, who are putting up one hell of a fight that I don't think the Russians ever expected.
Indeed, yes. It certainly puts any problems that we've got in our lives into perspective, doesn't it? But yes, wishing them all the best in their fight against the invasion by Putin. And please don't forget to catch, if you haven't done already, our show from last week, where we had on Dr. Paul Flenley from the University of Portsmouth, who is an expert in foreign relations and Russia. So some very insightful information from Paul last week that helped us understand a bit of the history and the geopolitics in the region. But today,
we are focusing west. Yes. Looking much closer to home, aren't we? So
yes,
we have bravely travelled off the island and down the M27 towards our friends in the neighbouring borough of Fareham.
We have indeed. So joining us this evening, in a second, hopefully Councillor Katrina Trott will be joining us again. She's just having some technical issues, so hopefully she'll be back with us. But we've also got with us from the Fareham Independence Group, candidate Jeannie Wigmore. Welcome, Jeannie.
Hi. Thank you very much for inviting me and give me this opportunity to have a chat.
Thank you very much.
It'd be lovely to get yours and hopefully Katrina's insights as she logs back in. So, as you're the man that does the data, Simon, what have you done with your diligent research?
So my diligent research, or frantic Googling, as it's otherwise known. So just to give some basic context, so Fareham, obviously, a borough council to the west of Portsmouth, and just to say that we did send invites to all of Fareham's sitting councillors, and also to the major parties as well. We had a response from the Conservative group, but unfortunately they weren't able to field someone. But thankfully we had a positive response from Katrina, who's from the Liberal Democrats, and also from Jeannie, who is a candidate for a second-time candidate for the Fareham Independence Group. Yes, we extended our invitation to all of those involved. Fareham Borough Council has 31 councillors, 23 Conservative, 5 Lib Dem, 3 Independent. The Borough Council is mostly covers the Fareham parliamentary constituency, but 2 of the wards actually are part of the Gosport constituency. So both parliamentary constituencies have only ever returned Conservative MPs, and both councils have large Conservative majorities. Fareham has a population of 116,000 or so, and covers an area of about 24.6 square miles. So comparing that to Portsmouth, which is 205,000 residents and 15.54 square miles, you could see kind of the bit of the difference there. But yes, so 23 Conservatives, 5 Lib Dems, 3 Independents, a Conservative majority, obviously with 16 being the required councillors for a majority in Fareham.
Marvellous. So if I can start with you, Jeannie, welcome, and can you introduce yourself, which party you represent, and what drew you into local politics?
Yes, thank you very much. I am an independent candidate, and independent means that I'm independent from any party. There are several of us that form an actual group called Fareham Independent Group, FIG. So as I said, we're not a party. We haven't got a whip. We're not having anyone tell us how to toe the line. We represent each ward or our intention is to represent each ward individually, because each ward has specific needs different from each other. But if there is a problem to do with the whole area, like housing, taxes, parking, things like that, then we will all pull together and try and help each other and support each other with that. But we're very much independent in our own right on that side of things. What pulled me into politics, I'm not saying that I'm a political animal, because I'm not. I was a police officer for 32 years, Portsmouth actually. So I'm fully aware of Portsmouth and the different problems that it's got down there. But I'm also Fareham born and bred. At 64 years of age, and when I came back to Fareham in 2002, I then started taking notice of what was actually going on around the area, and didn't really like the fact that the residents didn't have much say in what went on, that it was very much a lip service thing with the certain people that are in. Fareham is renowned to be conservative through and through. It has been since really time immemorial. But I also think that it needs a change. And our aim is, if we were successful in getting in, obviously we're a new body, so it takes time to build things up. But our aim is to basically give the voice back to the people, give the council back to the people, and for them to have a say as to how their money, the taxpayers' money, is spent in the area. Whereas at the moment, it seems that decisions are made, they then get given the opportunity to have their say, but it's like shutting a gate after the horse is bolted. And basically, we're sick to death of being treated like with no voice at all. The CAP meetings that they have is very much stifled, that you're very limited on what you can say and how long you can say it for. And everybody is of the opinion that the mind is made up. So what's the point in having the meetings? It's just lip service. And if we get in, we hope to change that, basically.
Marvelous. It's you've come across as very motivated and a force to be reckoned with. So that's great.
Yeah.
Have we got? Have you? Oh, carry on.
Sorry. No, I stood last year, was my first year of standing, because I thought instead of sitting back and moaning about it, I'll do something about it and see about doing fighting from the inside, basically, to try and get a voice that way and put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. And as a non-starter and a newbie, I stood 6 weeks before the election, as did quite a few of the others. And I came second. So I sailed past the Green Party, the Labour, the Lib Dems, came second, as did a few of the other people like Jan Monday, Me White. So really, from nowhere, I thought we'd done pretty well. Someone accused us of being a loser, but I don't think so. I think we're winners, and we aim to try and strive forward and make a difference.
Marvelous. That's grand. Has Katrina reappeared?
Not yet, I'm afraid. So while I just try to scrabble around and get hold of Katrina, if I just ask Jeannie the next
stuck
question.
With me.
No, not a problem at all, Jeannie.
That's all right. So So for more of the insular listeners who don't know Fareham, so how would you describe it, and what would you say is the town's identity?
As I said, I was born and bred here. Fareham itself used to be a very vibrant town. It had its animal market. The market was the centerpiece of it. You're surrounded, like Portsmouth, you're surrounded with coasts. It is a beautiful area to actually live in. You've got the countryside just on your doorstep. You've got links to London and other areas on your doorstep, to Europe via ferries, etc. So you've got the mixture of town, countryside, coastal, and everything else. But over the years, I appreciate things change, and I appreciate things never stay the same. However, I'm all for change as long as it's for the better and not just change for change's sake. But there are a lot of people that I've spoken to, and I speak with a fair amount of people via social media and in person, that this town is basically getting stifled and it's just starting to sink. With the cost of parking, they've now implemented new parking charges in the high street area where you've got small individual businesses and shops. That is now, and that used to be free parking. That is now, of the 14th of this month, going to be 20 minutes free. So, and then pay for after that. So you've got to be a bit of an athlete to be able to go out and do anything in 20 minutes. And if you're elderly or infirm, that's just a no-go area. And it's just another stealth tax that they're implementing, along with all the green waste and everything else. Stealth taxes, having to buy bins, pay for your bins to be emptied. I appreciate that they will say it's trying to bring us back in line with the rest of the country, but there is mainly charity shops and coffee shops in an abundance in Fareham. There's nothing really to entertain people other than restaurants. It is just getting stifled and it's dying. And the fact they've now also bought in coastal parking, so you can't even now go to the beach or anything else for a bit of respite or a bit of time out with the family without having to pay. They've now bought in parking at Portsmouth Castle, one of our main heritage sites, where there's so much that gets done down there, where they have concerts. There's a lot of volunteers that do things, but the current Conservatives in Fareham Borough Council decided that we were going to have to pay for that, because apparently there's been a bit of a shortfall of revenue, but which is okay if you're a councillor or Fareham Borough Council worker, because you get free parking, because you get a car park permit. So it doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to dip their hands in their pockets. So it's just Joe Soap, the residents of Fareham, that have to carry the brunt, and costs of living, as you know, with everything that's going on, is rocketing. Wages aren't matching it. And I think really that the current councillors that are in Fareham Borough Council, the Conservative Party, are doing a great disservice to the residents of Fareham, and they're killing the town off.
Just picking up on a couple of picking up on a couple of things there, because full disclosure, I went to college in Fareham back in the very late 80s, early 90s. So I was a Fareham tertiary college lad. So I used to, and at the time, for me, Fareham was way ahead of the curve. The Fareham shopping centre, that sort of American style indoor mall, and I guess some of our younger listeners, will be thinking, well, what about Gun Wharf and the village out the back of Fareham. But at the time, Fareham was a destination town in terms of the shopping experience. And I guess my sort of question there is do you feel like the loss of that was inevitable, or have there been mistakes made along the way that have seen that demise?
I think there's been mistakes made along the way. The cost of hiring these shops out, some has been sold off to, I can't remember the name of the group that own it. But at the same token, as I said, the cost of parking, there are now, and also a lot of money's been ploughed into Whiteley. Not just Gunwharf, but you've got Whiteley. That's all been revamped, and it just seems that now Fareham is just becoming a coffee shop stop, a charity shop stop, and it's dying. And people who, with local traders who basically are struggling to make ends meet, especially with all the COVID, having to shut up shop, some not entitled to furlough because it all depends how long they've been self-employed, etc. They are literally getting strangled by all these parking charges and everything else that is being implemented and that's coming in. I mean, before, with COVID, as people used to go down to the beach. Can you? Am I still with you?
Yeah. No. I'm sorry, I'm listening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my computer, but
you're still coming through loud and clear.
Yeah, with COVID, obviously you've got the countryside, you've got the seaside, but all of that now is it's just being ruined.
So,
hello, Katrina.
We've got you coming through loud and clear there.
Sorry for the interruption there, Jeannie. Sorry. We've got you through.
People are being driven away.
But I'm only on my phone,
basically,
at the moment.
So thank you ever so much there, and Katrina, welcome. We can hear you very much,
and my deepest apologies.
No problem at all. So if you just bear with us, Jeannie, while we rewind a minute. I think we've just got a bit of echo coming through there. No, that's sorted.
Yeah, it's Katrina. We've lost your video again, but we are getting feedback through the audio. If you've got earphones you can put in at all, that might help with that. Sorry about this, Jeannie. Sorry about this, audience.
Let's go on.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Yes,
Hello?
we've got you.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, that's fine. We can hear you. You're all okay. Can you hear us okay?
My iPad now. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks.
That's okay. Thank you for wrestling through them. I apologise for the mildly chaotic, but thank you so much for fighting your way through the technical stuff. Sorry about the loss of flow there, Jeannie. So and apologies to the audience there. Ian, I'm sorry. I was just trying to speak to Katrina to try and help her get back in. Where did we get to?
Yeah. So I was just going to. Let's all take a nice deep breath, recenter our zen. I will continue to stroke my cat. And so, Katrina, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself, which party you represent, and what got you into local politics?
Thank you very much indeed. I'm Katrina Trott, proud Liberal Democrat. I've had the honour to represent the people of Fareham East and the people of Fareham for 20 years this coming May. What brought me up into politics was I was brought up to believe that we should treat everyone as we would wish to be treated ourselves and do our best to make the world a better place for everyone. I have voted Liberal or Liberal Democrat most of my life, believing in their fundamental values of liberty, equality and community. I became active as a Liberal Democrat when my sons grew up, so I wasn't acting as a taxi service and to and from their various activities. I was asked to stand as a councillor alongside long-standing and honourable Jim Murray in 2002, when up until that time it had been a different system. The cabinet system was introduced then. Before then, there had been residents' associations, councillors, Labour councillors, Conservative, as well as Liberal Democrats. Unfortunately, since then, it's been, as Jeannie has said, a very largely Conservative dominated council, although it has always been Conservative since it began. When I was asked to be a councillor, I was still teaching as a secondary school teacher in the most deprived part of Fareham Northwest. Suffice it to say, I've got a strong social conscience. Is that enough?
That's lovely. Thank you, Katrina. And the follow-on question that that we had asked Jeannie was, for those of our more insular listeners, how would you describe Fareham's identity?
Right. Fareham is a good place to live. It's bounded to the west by the Solent, to the south by the Solent and Gosport, to the west by the River Hamble, to the east by Portchester, which is on the borders of Portsmouth, and to the north by Wickham, which is part of Winchester Borough Council. I can remember it as a market town with animals, part of the Monday market in the early 1970s. It was a market town, but it's expanded greatly since it became a borough in 1974. And that since then, there's been a gradual infilling between the separate villages of Portchester, Wallington, Titchfield, Stubbington, Loxheath and Parkgate. The population is older than both the Hampshire and the national averages, perhaps stemming from the naval personnel based in Portsmouth and HMS Collingwood in Fareham, buying homes here in the late 60s and 1970s, just as my husband and I did. So, like us, they're now in their 70s and even older. At 39%, Fareham has a larger percentage of owner-occupied homes than both Hampshire and England. It's relatively wealthy, therefore. But, and this is what is a real bugbear with me, we have a lower percentage of social rented homes, with only 8.1%, whereas Hampshire's got 13.8% and England 17.7%. We can be seen as relatively affluent and have a large population of Fareham's households with more than one car. Our leader, Councillor Woodward, is very proud of this fact because he says it shows how prosperous we are and how we're doing well. But we do have pockets of deprivation, such as Fareham Northwest, which is where I spent the final 17 years of my over 30 years teaching career, and Fareham South. Does that help?
That's lovely. Thanks ever so much, Katrina. So if I can just move on to the next question, which I'll pose to Jeannie. Those of us that are interested in local politics are sometimes quite confused by Fareham, as there seems to be kind of regular elements of sort of infighting and defections, and people who crossed the floor from being part of a political party to standing as an independent. And you mentioned yourself the FIGs looking to create a more independent, a greater independent presence in Fareham. So I guess a couple of questions, which is why do you think this sort of defection is perhaps more prevalent in Fareham Borough Council? And B, do you think that adds to the diversity and actually gives a better range of voices for the people of Fareham?
A lot of people, I'll say a lot of people, there was a few councillors that were Conservative that jumped ship and came over as an independent because they felt that they were stifled and couldn't actually do what to do, and basically didn't want to have a whip on that side of things. I think everything is needed to move forward, to make a change. At the end of the day, we're trying to, represent the residents as best as we can. It's difficult to say, really. I mean, you've always had Labour, you've always had Conservatives, Lib Dem. You've got the Green Party as well. As I said, we're new, up and coming, to try and take on board. As I said, you've got where is it? Frimley. I appreciate how, but not Frimley, Frome, and they're completely independent, and they have given the voice back to the residents on that side of things. And that's what we're trying to do, really, is to try and work together as a group and help get the council back to where it should be, and that's with the people.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Jeannie. So, Katrina, same question to you. Again, you represent a party and you've been sat in the chamber for 20 years. How do you read what's gone on?
We do live in a democracy. People have the vote here. And I think it's particularly important to note that at this very difficult time in the world, with something that is supposed to be a democracy, Russia, although they have rigged elections, they don't allow anybody to stand, whereas we do. It is a democracy. And I would say that if it is a case that Fareham has more defections, etc., than other people, I don't have the evidence for that. The councillors who leave became independent because they had disagreements with and became disillusioned by local and national Conservative leadership. And I think it's honourable and quite right that we should have a wide range of people standing to be local councillors. I'm very sad that so few people, usually less than 40%, actually bother to vote. People tell me it's not worth voting because it won't make a difference. It will. They really should vote. And I think it's sad and worth noting that all those who became independent because they'd had disagreements and stood with the leadership, stood as an independent candidate, and those like Jeannie and others who hadn't previously been councillors were not elected. And that's a shame. It really is a shame. But it shows, I hate to say it, that we live in a democracy. Now, the majority of Fareham's population lives in the Western wards. The wards are generally where the more affluent people are. And I hate to say it, but those people tend to value Conservative values. It might change in the future, although I think that Boris Johnson's current rise in diplomacy is going to act a bit like Margaret Thatcher's rise did after the Falklands War. I had hoped that people in Fareham would become thoroughly disillusioned with the Conservatives. Local Conservatives are fed up with this government. They're always moaning about them. And it's up to the people to vote. And if they want to vote in a Conservative, they will. Sadly, in the general election, people in Fareham generally vote for Conservatives.
We lost the last sentence of your comment there, Katrina, just from the connection. We're not getting. Is anybody else getting any sound of Katrina?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately not.
Hang on a moment, Katrina. We'll circle back to that if you can include it later on. But let's just see whether your internet connection improves. Sorry, Jenny, go on. Sorry, Jenny.
Yeah, no, I mean, basically, it's like if people want change, and instead of moaning about things, if they want change, they've actually got to get out there and go to the ballot boxes and put their mark in, really. You know, I mean, I appreciate the turnout last year wasn't that particularly good. We could say it's because of COVID, because of people feeling vulnerable and not wanting to go there. But things hopefully are moving forward, and they need to actually put the cross in who they believe is best representation for them. And if they don't bother to do it, then really they haven't got any room to moan. Or
no,
well, they can moan, but
they can, yeah, they can, and they will. And I think, you know, again, we covered last year. You know, we've covered extensively since the George Madgwick, who's a Portsmouth independent, who was elected last year as an independent by basically persuading a large group of residents who historically didn't vote. The turnout was very low, sort of around the 20% mark. And then there was a 35% turnout in the ward last year, and the people that turned out for the independents. So I think, you know, there is that example in Portsmouth that says, you know, if a candidate can motivate that section of the section of the electorate that doesn't vote to turn out, then any result is possible. Because looking at the numbers in Fareham, if you can motivate, you know, a few hundred people to back you, then you become very electable.
Social media is a big platform this day and age. Most of my votes last year was from social media, and it's easy to get into like a little bubble, but as I said, we go out there, we try not just go out there sort of spouting politics. I personally go out and I've helped people. I've just today come back from filling up. I've got a truck, and I've been going with round like a lot of other people, you know, donations. I'm using my truck to be able to move stuff from A to B in order to do that. But anybody who knows me, turn up on my doorstep or message me. I will do anything I can within my power to help them, be it on a private issue, filling out PIP forms, helping them with police issues, as to not saying that I'm giving advice as a police officer, because I'm not a police officer anymore. but I know what avenues for them to go down to help. There was a problem with one of the schools needed what they call school bags or chair bags for COVID, so that the kids could put all their books in. So I managed to make 150 of those. It was like a little bit of a line thing going on here. Everybody has pulled together throughout the pandemic, but we just seem to have got lost along the ways, and there's a lot of resentment with other parties at the moment because we all feel that we're being lied to by.
So just while Simon's wrestling with the technical issues and trying to get Katrina back on, you touched there on what you're hearing. So in terms of, what is the mood of the people of Fareham, and what are you hearing on the doorsteps as being the big issues as we go into May's election?
Obviously, I can only speak for the people that have approached me. I can't speak for everybody.
Yep. No.
On that side of things, but it's the general consensus is the fact that we've just been totally lied to, and that we're being led by a leader that hasn't got the leading qualities. I appreciate being Prime Minister for anyone, or a leader of a party for anyone, is a difficult job to do. But the thing that we as independents are advocating is openness and transparency and truthfulness. And I think that is the way forward, instead of all trying to duck and dive and everything else. I mean, you've seen it yourself in the papers with regards to everybody towing the line, keeping indoors, isolating and everything else, whilst, as it's been shown, up top has been having parties, and that was the biggest smack in the face that this country could have had at the times that they were going through. And they've done themselves a huge disservice. And it's from that they've lost trust. Trust has to be earned, it's not given. And they've just lost it, I think, as did a lot of people saying the same.
We thank you, Jeannie. Sorry to interrupt. So we did have Katrina back. I don't know, Katrina, can you hear us okay? Because I can see that you're on the stream, but I haven't got any video footage. We'd rather at least have audio rather than nothing, if that's the problem. If the connection there isn't allowing you to do both, and turn off the video camera if necessary, just so that we can still get audio. But I don't know if you can hear us at all.
I'm sorry that you're just stuck with me at the moment.
No. To
as
be
I
honest,
said, Katrina's a seasoned councillor. I'm really new at all this.
Absolutely, and these are the things that we can't legislate or plan for. So the technical side of things is that we just got to work within those boundaries. So I guess just following on from that. So do you think that this election, the upcoming May elections, which are the local council, do you think they're going to be much more fought on national issues, or are those local issues of bins, parking, those irritants for local residents? Where do you see the battle lines being drawn for May's elections?
I would like to think that we stand a chance of getting in, but then anybody that's standing as a candidate would like to think the same about that. I don't think the Conservatives have done themselves any favours. I appreciate that they need to try and get some money back from somewhere, but it's always us that are just suffering, the pitfalls of it. I think they've done, as I said, I think they've done themselves a huge disservice, and albeit the local councillors can't be held accountable for the ones at the top, it all rolls down and everybody gets lumped in the same category, really. If you're a Conservative, whether you're local Conservative or whether you're the Prime Minister, you're all in the same party. And I think a lot of trust has been lost from those because of those at the top. Equally, how things, it seems to be handled down this end, this neck of the woods at this level, where you're seeing housing going up everywhere because we're trying our damnedest to try and save the strategic gaps. We seem to be banging our heads against a brick wall there. I appreciate that they haven't got a local plan. That's going, I think, this week, or it might be this week just gone, going to the inspectors, or for it to be approved or not approved. At the moment, it's a builder's paradise where if it gets refused by Fareham Borough Council, it goes to the inspector. They might approve it because there's no local plan in place. And we're just really worried that Fareham itself is going to end up just being a concrete city, or not concrete city, it's a concrete town. The infrastructure that we've got at the moment with doctors, surgeries, they just can't cope with what's happening, or with the residents that we've got now, and let alone having to add to it. There's also the bit to do with the nitrates, where all the sea is just polluted all around, where you're getting raw sewage coming out because the water companies aren't doing what is necessary in order to cope with that or deal with that. They get paid, they get offered a fine, or get told they've got a fine to pay. Basically, we're paying that fine because we're still paying our bills. It's a drop in the ocean to them, but it doesn't solve the problem that all our rivers and everything is just totally polluted. It's filling with nitrates. There's been land and farms bought on the Isle of Wight to offset the nitrates. Well, that might be all good offsetting, but that doesn't actually solve the problem. What is happening in front of us in our own streams and around our areas? And it's, at the end of the day, I haven't got children. I could take a selfish outlook of like, well, I'm all right, Jack, and I've got more years behind me than I've got in front, but I'm not like that. And it is a worry for the kids and grandkids and the future generations. You know, it's just, everything is just all coming together, where if you're going to have all this housing area, it's okay saying, well, we'll build you a surgery and we're going to build you maybe an extra school or whatever. But the thing is they can't fill the places with doctors now. There's a surgery just up the road from here that has had an application or a vacancy for a doctor for over a year now. They can't get the doctors to fill it. So how on earth are they going to fill a new surgery?
So with
infrastructure is bad.
Yeah, sorry to interject there, Julie.
Sorry.
So sorry, we're still struggling to get Katrina back. But I was just thinking, in line with what you were saying there, Fareham's had the threat or the opportunity of Wellbourne being built to its north. Is that something that you welcome, or do you feel that it's something that would cause more problems than it would solve?
At the end of the day, I think Wellbourne is really a done deal on that side. There's been objections through it all the way through. It's of for and against. We do realise that we cannot not have any more houses built, that we do have to go along and have them. But the idea is that if Wellbourne was built, I know there's an issue with Junction 10, but if Wellbourne was actually built and was under construction and underway, that would solve the majority of the housing issue that Fareham has to provide for the government figures. At the moment, the important areas of like the strategic gaps. The strategic gaps are basically gaps between, so which defines a gap between, say, Stubbington and Fareham. It's like the village settlements, so to speak. Even the government in the past has said that they are important to retain, but they're all getting built on, and the infrastructure, it just cannot cope with it.
And I think that's an important point there, Jeannie. I mean, I lived for 30 years in Gosport, so I am very familiar with the Newgate Lane and the Newgate Lane roundabout. And surely to try and build more houses in that space between Stubbington and Fareham, you're just trying to force yet more traffic through a road and an infrastructure, and that just simply can't cope.
Exactly, it can't cope. There's plenty of brownfield sites that can be built on, but I don't know why the brownfield sites aren't actually being built on as the first thought, rather than the strategic gaps, the greenfields. As you say, you can't. Gosport, there's basically one road in, one road out, and no matter what you put in place, Stubbington bypass or whatever, you're still going to have people heading into the same area. You're still going to get bottlenecks. It might not be straight away on the Gosport Road, but you're going to end up having bottlenecks. It's a massive undertaking, and the cost of it alone, it is just, well, it's just, you're going to end up with the sites that they're looking at building around off of Longfield Avenue, around Newlands. There's also plans for up round Down End. There's a whole host of plans of houses dotted all around. You're going to end up totally gridlocked. I don't care what traffic light system you get put in or anything else, you're going to end up totally gridlocked. It's bad enough now, let alone when it all comes to fruition. I appreciate that a particular person has got this site that has been in their eyes apparently for some years, called Solent City. Well, that might not be for the rest of people, for everybody, and we're all going to suffer at some person's idealistic idea, but we just cannot cope. The roads are chocker now, yourself.
Yeah, and again, so if I look back, the first house my wife and I purchased down in Gosport was on the route of the infamous light railway that was supposed to solve all of those traffic problems between Gosport and Fareham, and was going to whisk people along the site of the old railway line, all the way up to Fareham station. And
Yeah.
after 10 years and a lot of money, that never happened. So I think the risk for Fareham is always going to be that it's beset on all sides. And if you look at the Wellbourne development, as an outsider looking in, it almost risks Fareham becoming what's described as a dormitory town.
You've got me now. Yeah, I can see you now. Thank you. Bye.
People go there to they live there, they sleep there, but that's pretty much all they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, as I said, I personally think the infrastructure, well, not just me personally, there's a lot of people, obviously there's so much going on that everybody's trying to get things stopped, battle for this, battle for that, and it's like trudging uphill in treacle. It seems like if we can see it, why can't others see it?
Indeed. I think we've got Katrina back.
We might have.
Yes.
Katrina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see you. Hopefully you can
Brilliant.
see me.
Marvellous.
Well, we've got a static image of you, but us at least
That'll
having your
do.
audio so you can contribute is we'll settle for at least that if we can't at least have the video
That's
as
fine.
well. So thank you for battling away,
Thank you.
and thank you, Jeannie, for basically continuing to provide excellent answers to the questions that we've got there. So my apologies to the audience for the slightly mildly chaotic nature of the show today, but technology being what technology is, where we are. So Ian, where did we get to?
Yeah, so Katrina, we were just talking about the threat and opportunity of Wellborn to Fareham. So where do you stand on the? Is it a done deal? And is it a blessing or a curse to Fareham?
It's a done deal now. I was very much opposed to it initially, and was part of a larger group of people, including representatives from Funtley, Hampshire, Wickham, also Wallington, my village of Wallington, all of them. And you've got to remember that initially it was 10,000 homes, and now it's for up to 6,000 being built over the next 30 years. It's not instant. It's supposed to have 40% affordable homes, which seems to be a good idea for Fareham. But remember, there is a difference between affordable homes, which are 80% of market price rent or cost, and social housing, which is 50% of the market rent. Bearing in mind that we're in a very popular area of Southern Hampshire, our market rents are much higher than those in Gosport or Portsmouth. I do believe that Buckland, the developers, want to make it as good as they can, but they've got financial pressures. So sadly, and I'm against this, the 40% affordable homes will not be built in the first tranche. Referring to your question about Rishi Sunak's open check, I think it would be a really good thing if Fareham Borough Council could buy some of that land and build good quality social housing. You said, was it a blessing or a curse? Because of the extra people that will be around on the roads, it's a curse. Because this wretched government keeps posing unrealistic 5-year assessments for houses, and when Fareham Borough councillors unanimously reject plans on open fields, they go to the government planning inspector, who says, oh, you haven't got 5 years supply of land, you've got to build these houses, and we need you to build some more. So basically it comes down to government diktats, and we ought to have more local accountability.
And to that end, Jeannie and I were chatting about the strategic gap, and I shared I'd lived in Gosport for 30 years, so was more than familiar with the Newgate Lane roundabout. Is it simply a case of there is no way to build on the outskirts of Fareham without contributing to the already dreadful traffic situation that there is surrounding that interface between Stubbington, Gosport and Fareham?
In a word, yes. Hampshire County Council are responsible for roads in Hampshire, apart from the national highways like the M27, and they have got limited funds, and they will do the best they can, what they perceive to be the best they can, to make transport possible. But they really are not bothered about people having to wait later and longer and longer times to go to work or wherever, which is why we all are trying to promote better means of transport, public transport, cycling, walking. Realistically, many people prefer to be in their own little enclosed bubble, their car. They don't like having to wait a long time for buses. Buses are a private investment now.
except for a very few places. Even a long-time Conservative councillor, Councillor Ernie Crouch, long since passed, I'm sorry to say, said that although he liked very much Margaret Thatcher, she made two big mistakes in her life, as far as he had come to believe. One was selling off council housing, and the other one was privatising buses. And that's the problem.
As a Conservative, I'm inclined to agree.
And there we have it on record. We've got it recorded and everything, everybody. One of the things that so we had a comment actually put into the live stream from one of the people watching at home. So Nathan was asking. So the Independents and Liberal Democrats seem to have similar priorities, defending green spaces and criticising the conduct of the current administration, and to make it easier for businesses to operate locally. But why do they stand against each other at election time? Could the candidates say why? This is what Nathan's saying. So could you say why he should vote for one over the other when they appear to actually stand for very similar things? And if I can put that first to Jeannie.
I think I've been saying enough at the moment. I was hoping you'd go to Katrina.
Shall I come back to you? I'll let Katrina pull some of the weight for a minute. So Katrina, that one to you.
Yes, that's understandable. I sympathise, Jeannie, and I'm terribly sorry for the inconvenience. Well, we believe that everybody should have the opportunity to vote for whoever they think best represents their views. I agree that many of the independents have got the same views as we Liberal Democrats. I would, however, say that the vast majority of the independents that stood last, from the councillors who stood, were ex-Conservatives. So they've got Conservative views basically at the heart of things. I would, I'm a Social Democrat. So I'm a left-leaning person. I believe that we should be looking at people's individual needs and community needs more than the profit or motive. And you've got to remember that I don't think there is a single Conservative councillor serving who agrees with the government policies, particularly with housing, imposing housing and all the problems that is causing us. People have just got to look at what we are all offering. And regrettably, at elections, whether they're local, well, when they're local, people do look at the overall policies. And people in Fareham and elsewhere get muddled about what local parties can deal with. For example, we're told people complain about there not being enough schools. That's dealt with by Hampshire. They can complain about there not being enough doctors. That they are independent and it's dealt with by the NHS, etc., etc. We are where we are. That probably isn't quite the answer you wanted, but we all respect each other. I will say this: Fareham Borough Council works well on the whole because we collaborate on many things. We tend to put things forward which might get rebuffed, but they're generally for the good of the people, and they usually come to fruition a couple of years later.
Can I just clarify on something there?
Yes, please, Jeannie. So I was going to come to you next anyway, so please do.
All right, sorry. Right. Last year, it was the first time of the independent standing. And yes, at that time, there were ex-Conservative councillors standing. Right. There was 3 or 4 of us that had never been in politics at all. I'm one, Amy, Jan, what have you. This year, obviously, Katrina might be in the know. I don't know. This year, we're all, not one of us is an ex-Tory councillor. So we're all completely independent, totally. The ones that were last year Conservative standing as independents are not doing it this year. So as I said, we're all new, virginal, whatever you like to call it, on the independent side of things. The difference with, yes, like you say, it's been pointed out from Nathan that we're very similar in our views. The difference is with the independents is we do not have a whip. I take it you have a whip, do you,
No, we
Katrina?
don't.
Oh, you
No,
don't?
definitely
Right.
not.
I
said
stand
that
corrected
earlier.
there.
I
So
stand
yeah,
We
it's
definitely
very
don't.
it's
We very
very
much-
hard to distinguish then between, as Nathan has said, but it's who you think is going to represent your ward best for you. And all I can say, people in my ward know that I will fight their corner as best as I can, as I'm sure Katrina will. But
I'm
that's
not up
that's
for
all I can
re-election.
say. Sorry?
I was elected last year in the delayed 2020 elections, so therefore I'm not standing again until 2024.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it won't be me. We obviously have got a Liberal Democrat candidate.
Yeah.
To be fair, within this ward and the people of this ward, thank you, people, have re-elected me every single time since 2002, know what I stand for, and know that I followed along with Jim Murray, who was the Liberal Democrat councillor before, and can be assured that our Liberal Democrat councillor, the person that we put up, which will be David Hamilton, as people here know, will be working with me and with fellow Liberal Democrats to do the best we can.
Right. Well, as we've said, we're new, as I'm sure you know, Katrina. You're seasoned, and I thought we'd done pretty well last year.
You did.
And we've got every intention of driving it forward. But it's down to each individual voter as to who they're going to vote for, really, at the end of the day.
So Nathan's, I think, quite natural follow-up question, and if I can ask you to try to keep the answers brief, just so that we can try to get in without overrunning too much, if that's okay. So his follow-up is that, so would the Independents and the Liberal Democrats consider working together with the aim of preventing the Tories in winning some way? I mean, Katrina, you spoke earlier on about the massive Conservative majority, and about how the electoral system kind of working in that respect, and it's a reflection of the democracy. What are your thoughts on that? If I can take that to Jenny first, and then to Katrina.
Jeannie. Yeah.
Jeannie, I'm so sorry, Jeannie. Sorry, beg your pardon.
That's all right. I answer to anything. No.
Okay, there we go. That's a short answer. Okay, that's good. Katrina.
No, it's a democracy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
People will have to choose for themselves in their ward, because I am sure each person who stands within the ward will be promising to do their best to represent the views of the residents.
Okay, so the voters decide is I guess kind of the outcome from that. Ian, the next question, please.
Yeah, so if we look at Fareham sits within Hampshire County Council. So, and again, looking for a brief answer, down the road in Portsmouth, we're a unitary authority, so there's much more control there. If there's one thing that you would like to move from the power of Hampshire into the power of Fareham Borough, what would you want to gain control over? And if I can ask that to Katrina first, please.
Highways, roads, and how we manage parking considerations. I mean, the latest money-grabbing situation by Hampshire to install parking meters in Fareham High Street is abysmal. Fareham Borough Council didn't want that. Fareham Borough Council always wanted to allow some free parking there.
Yeah, and to be fair, you've also compromised, Fareham Borough Council has compromised Portsmouth Castle, which is one of my guide dog's favourite free running destinations, but we now have to pay.
Couldn't agree more. But at the council meet and the Portsmouth councillors, well, and other Liberal Democrat councillors called in that decision and asked for it to be looked at again. And it was pointed out that Fareham Borough Council is the only council along the south coast between various places that didn't charge for coastal car parking. And they say that they need to have an input from car parking charges, which, by the way, English Heritage will be taking a proportion of. They're happy about this. They need that to offset the rise in council tax. People vote with their feet.
Equally, as I said, it was the Conservatives that actually voted the Porchester Castle in. There were 3 councillors, yeah.
That's a majority.
So, yeah.
So Jeannie, Hampshire County Council, if there's one power you'd like to take off of them and bring back into the control of Fareham?
Well, as Katrina says, they deal with the highways. That's the one that affects us most around here. On that side with the parking enforcement, the upkeep of the roads, it should never have been removed from Fareham. Or any other town at that each town should hold its own council and own purse strings with regards to what improvements that they need to do and what should be under control.
Marvellous. Simon.
Okay, so forgive us for overrunning slightly, but we'll just have one last question, and I'll go to Jeannie first. So Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak gives you a blank cheque for Fareham. What would you spend it on?
I would spend it on the services that have been totally crushed, taken away. Things with people with like mental health issues, the domestic abuse issues, all those services to do with disabilities, to have full inclusion for everybody in every avenue and every aspect. The people that aren't able to stand up and speak for themselves is what I would do.
Thank you very much. And the same question to Katrina, please.
Totally agree. We've got troubles with youngsters with antisocial behaviour, entirely down to the lack of care for the youth clubs, etc. We have mental health issues, and there aren't enough ways to deal with those under the present regime. Also, I would like to see more help given to invigorating the town centre by reducing business rates, which are from the government, so it's got to come from the government, and building more council homes.
Fantastic. So, Jeannie, Katrina, thank you. That has been, thank you both for battling through the technical issues. And Jeannie, as you've said many times that you're not a seasoned professional, you made us look, you were very professional compared to the hosts. So thank you both for your input. You've been listening to the Pompey Politics Podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And our guests have been
Jeannie Wigmore, Fareham Independent Group.
Katrina Trott, Fareham Liberal Democrat Group.
And I've been Simon Sansbury. Do join us next week, where we're joined by outgoing Portsmouth City Councillor Claire Udy, who'll be sharing her experiences as a councillor. Don't forget, we're also holding virtual hustings this year, more bit back and bigger and better than before. And we're happy to hold them for any ward where 2 or more candidates are happy to agree to take part. We've got 2 wards already signed up with candidates ready to, subject to scheduling, slot in those hustings, which is Cosham and Eastleigh and Craneswater, with other candidates already interested in Paulsgrove, Milton, Baffins and Charles Dickens, waiting for other candidates to join them. But as nominations don't close for this year's local elections until 4 p.m. on April the 5th, that's when we'll know for sure who all the candidates are in each of the 14 wards up for election in Portsmouth this May. So I've been Simon Sansbury. You've been listening to the Pompey Politics podcast. Please do join us next week at 6:27.